Using the test management features of our tool, you can track all of your manual test cases. You can also set up configurations and group tests into test sets and run those for specific configurations. In addition, you can also track any automated test cases that you run through TestComplete or HP's Quick Test Pro. So where do you get started? Well, you first want to ensure that you have a release set up. You'll see a tab called Releases where you can organize your releases by product line. In this example, we have an orders application and we have a release. In this release, we happen to have also an Agile sprint as well as a build. For each one of these releases, sprints, and builds, we can also see the number of requirements, the number of test sets, and the number of tests. To get started with test management, go to the Test Management tab and click on Test Library. Once you're here, you'll notice that you can organize your test into functional areas within your product line. In this example, we have 6 tests that are going to test our order maintenance. We also have 4 that are going to test our file operations. If you want to add a new test, you simply press the Add New button. Once here, you can enter this data manually or you can autofill from a recent test. Let's say that you wanted to create a purge with 25 years of data and it was very similar to this 10-year purge. You can save time by simply cloning from that. At this point, I simply just need to put that to 25, move this to 25. I can also make this an approved one. I can prioritize it. I can choose a risk level. I can assign it to a person, and I can set the ownership. Once I press Submit, it'll clone from the 10-year data and then allow me to then choose the steps. Notice that it automatically set those steps up that were out there before. Now at this point, I just need to come in here and change this to 25 years. And then I'll change this to 25. If I wanted to add additional steps here, I could simply press the Add button, or I can just navigate to the end row and then it'll automatically open up a row for me. If I want to delete a row, I can press the Delete button. If I want to sequence rows, I can drag these rows from place to place. If I want to pull test steps from another test case, I can navigate all of my test cases over here, filter it, and then find an existing test case. If I wanted to highlight some of those steps and drag and drop them onto the canvas, I can very easily do that. Again, if I want to delete those, I can come here and delete those. You can also mark steps as critical. That says that if this step doesn't pass, then we want to stop the testing process. That's no problem. We'll go ahead and press Save here. We can see that we now have a new test case called Test Purge with 25 years of data. So how do we organize these tests and run those under different configurations? Well, the first thing you'll want to do is go into the configurations area and ensure that you have all of the valid configurations that you care about. Notice that you can organize them any way you wish. Here I've organized these by operating system. So if we wanted to see all the configurations we've set up for Windows 7, we can see all of the different browser configurations here. Adding configurations is simple. Just press the Add New button, fill in the details, and press Submit. Now to organize your tests into test sets, you'll want to go to this Test Sets area. From the Test Sets area, you can create a new test set by simply pressing the Add button. Let's imagine that we wanted to test the purge process. Now notice that we could have used the autofill to do this as well. I'll go ahead and assign this to somebody, maybe a tester here, and I will prioritize this and I will describe this process. As you can see, I'm going to set this test set up to purge for 1, 20, and 25 years. While I'm at it, I can also link this test to a release, which I've already done. If I'd also like to link it to some configurations to ensure this is run under different operating systems and browsers, I can choose Link to Items, and I can choose any of those configurations. I'm going to run this in IE8 and IE9 for Windows XP. Once done, press Submit. Notice it automatically takes you to the Tests tab. This is where you can select specific tests to be included in your regression set. Here I'm going to navigate my library, and I'm going to choose just the ones in the library that are in the batch processing area. And if you remember, I just wanted to test the ones that had 10, 20, or 25 years of data. Now that I have this on my canvas, I can also resequence those so that I do those in logical order. Now if one of these tests were critical, for example maybe the 20-year one was critical, I can also choose to stop this on failure. If I want to make any changes to the test set before I'm done, I can go back to the edit screen. Here I'm going to update this to be 10, 20, and 25. I press submit, and that test set is now ready to run. To run the test set, I simply come here and press the run button. Notice that it's pre-selected my release and my sprint. And let's imagine I want to test this in Windows XP IE9. I'll press run. Notice once we're here, it shows that this test case has been set to stop on failure. You'll also see the average runtime of any of our tests that are included in this test set. To begin the run, you just press the run button. Once here, you can pass each step by simply pressing pass. If you'd like to pass each step without pressing each one of these individually, you can do pass all steps. If you come across a step that fails, you can actually mark that step as failed, and you can also record your actual results here. Now you can type in the actual result, but I think a better way to do this is to record what actually happened when it failed. That way the developer can see exactly what you saw during the testing process. To do that, you'll bring up your application that's under test, and you'll use a third-party tool called Jing to record a movie that shows exactly what you saw when you did the test. If you're not familiar with Jing, it is a free tool, and you can download it from jingproject.com. To use Jing, you simply highlight the area of the page that you'd like to record, and you can even do a screenshot or a recorded video. I'm going to do a video. This will also record your narration as you go. So then you can actually show from here you can show the developer how to use this tool. Notice that I've opened up the item, and I came here and I went to orders, and there's no purge. So that's the problem that we're having here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and I'm going to ask Jing to upload this video to the website. I can upload it to Screencast or a local FTP. I'm going to choose a local FTP. Once done, it'll tell us that the capture has been uploaded. With my capture uploaded, I can then put in my actual results that the developer needs to see the movie. To do that, I just simply right-click and choose Paste, and it uses the Jing copy buffer to use that to embed that movie into the actual result. To continue, I press Submit. At this point, it recognizes that I failed the test, and it asks if I would like to automatically generate a defect. Sure, why not? It'll automatically create a defect for you, and notice that in the steps to reproduce, it's also put in all of the expected results. It shows each step that passed or failed, and it also included the movie. If you want to view the movie, you simply double-click it, and it pulls that movie forward. To route this defect to the developer, press Submit. It'll send an automatic email to the developer to let them know about it. It also gives you a run history here of everything that happened in your test along with the run time. Now let's take a more advanced scenario. Let's imagine that you're in the testing process and you want to update the test during the test process. Well, first you need to ensure that you have the rights to do that. So your security administrator can go into the security area and go to your specific security group. I happen to be a security administrator, and turn on the right for you to actually update the steps during the run process. Once you're in the security screen, you'll notice an item called Allow Editing Steps During Test Run. If that's checked, then it gives you the right to do that. So let's go back and try that. Let's go back to the test management, and let's run this batch processing again. This time we'll run under IE8, and we'll begin our run. So this time let's run our test purge process, but while we're running it, we'll actually change the steps. We'll press run. This time we'll choose to run it under XP IE8. Once here, we'll press run again. One of the things that I wanted you to notice also is that as you're running the test, if you have any linked artifacts like requirements or other artifacts like that, you can see those directly from here, and you can click on that and actually bring that artifact up. Let's imagine that you wanted to add a step in between these two steps because we forgot to tell them to press the submit button after they set the purge criteria. If I want to add that step, I just press the add button. Then I'll type in the step. I'll press OK, and you'll see that our new step is in there. Now at this point, I can go ahead and pass all my steps if I wish, and I can press Submit. As soon as I do that, it'll ask me, do you want to update the test library with your changes? If I choose yes, it'll update the library. If I choose no, it won't. It'll only change it for this run. I'll go ahead and choose yes and continue on with my testing. Once I'm done, it shows me a summary of all of those runs. I'd like to now go in and look at that 10-year purge to ensure that it updated the library. I'll go back over to my library. I'll look at the 10-year purge. I'll go to the Steps tab. So now that you've seen how to set up manual tests and group those into test sets, let's talk about automation. You'll notice an automation area here. If you're using TestComplete or HP's Quick Test Pro, you can download a plug-in between our tool and their tool. Once you have the plug-in, anytime you run tests within those tools, those tests will be recorded here. You can also use our automation scheduler to automatically schedule tests at particular dates and times. Our tool is very configurable. For example, if you go to the test library and you want to add custom fields to a form, you can go to that form and press Custom Fields. Anytime you see drop-down list items like this, you can also go to the choice list and change those. You'll notice that status has several different values here. You can change those values over in the choice list area by simply coming here and changing those status codes. You can also set up workflow and state transitions around that. For example, if you wanted certain people to approve items, you can set that kind of thing up. You can also say that anytime you get a new test case, you only want it to go into awaiting approval or InDesign. You can also have it automatically assigned to someone. If you want to dumb the screen down based on it being a new test case, you can also choose Select Fields for this transition. From here, you can make fields hidden. You can also make certain fields optional, required, or locked. If you prefer not to do this, you can also revert that by pressing here. Anytime you're looking at a set of tests, you can sort those tests by simply clicking on the column. If you click once, it'll sort in ascending order. If you click again, it'll sort by descending order. You can also filter your tests by pressing Quick Search. You can enter a phrase to find any type of test case. Maybe we're only looking for the one that has File New in it. We'll press Submit here. It'll find any test cases that meet that criteria. If I want to turn that filter off, I can come back up here and choose No Filter. I can also choose the information that's shown on the screen. Notice that we have a number of different fields that we're showing. If you wanted different fields, just press the Choose Fields button. You can also import and export data. Notice that you can import from CSV file. You can also export data out to XML or comma-separated file. We also have an HP Quality Center conversion tool. Another way you can filter items is to come over into the Groups area. Let's imagine that I wanted to find all tests by assignee. I can choose assignee, and it shows me that Jane has the majority of the tests here. If I'd like to group that by priority within that, I can very easily group by priority. I can see of Jane's tests that 3 of them are high priority. If I want to drill into the details, I can click on this side and see the details. Notice that each test has run history. It shows you every time the test is run, what release it was run in, what test set ran it, what configuration it was run under, and whether it passed or failed. It also shows you the runtime. It also aggregates all of that runtime so that you can get an average of how long it takes to run the specific test. Similar to that, if you're over in the test sets, you'll notice that if you drill into a specific test set, you can go to Run History here as well. For each test set, it'll show you what release it was run under, what configuration, and the status of it. It also shows you how long it took to run. Likewise, it shows you the number of tests in there, how many passed, how many failed, how many blocked, and how many are still awaiting run. One of the really great things about the tool is all of the reporting capabilities. Notice that the test management area has dashboards. If you go to the dashboards, you'll notice the dashboards for the test library as well as for the runs. On the test run side, you can see all of your test runs by configuration. You can also look at requirement coverage. You can look at test runs by assignee, so you can see which testers are most busy. You can also see test runs by test set. In addition, if you're using this to manage your requirements, the requirements area also has a dashboard. This dashboard will show you requirements by status, by group. It'll also show you your trending over time and it'll show your requirement test coverage as well as your test runs by requirement. You'll also see that each one of these are drillable. For example, let's imagine that I wanted to see what these approved items are. I can press that button and it'll show me a full list. If I want to drill a little further and look at the individual requirement, I can press on the ID and it'll pull that data up as well. Another nice feature is the ability to update things in bulk. Let's imagine that we had a number of different test cases in different statuses. I'm going to sort them by status. But let's say that I just want to see the ones that are in design. I can do a quick search. Once I find those, I can press Fast Edit to update those in bulk. From here, notice that you can update items, you can update phrases, you can clone items, delete items, move items from one folder to the other, move items from one project to the other, copy items from one project to the other, or copy items from folder to folder. I'm going to go ahead and update items, so I'll press Update Multiple Items. From here, I'll choose all of these items, and I'm going to change the status to Approved. Once I press Submit, these will disappear from our view because we no longer have any that are in design. To see all of our test cases, we'll come back here and choose No Filter. If you wanted a more advanced filter, you can go into the Filters area and create public or private filters. Another thing that you'll need to do as you're working with the test management area is you'll probably want to run reports. If you go to the Reports area, you'll notice a number of reports underneath the test management area. For example, you can see automated test runs. You can see requirements missing tests. You can see requirements traceability matrix. You can see test run coverage by requirement, configuration, or test set. You can even look at your test library and find out exactly what's in there by assignee, design status, owner, requirement, or test set. Let's imagine that we want to see all of our test run coverage by requirement. We'll simply choose that. Once we do that, we can run that across all of our projects or just the current project. The report now shows us all of our requirements on the left-hand side and all of the run activity on the right. It also gives us a bird's eye view as to how many tests have passed and failed for the entire release. If we want to navigate this report, we can use the navigation on the left-hand side. As we begin the page, it'll show us the details that make this up. This concludes our overview of the test management process. We hope you enjoyed.